What's up, gamers, book besties? My name is Angie, and this is my channel, Maybe I'll Read Today, where I talk about books that I may or may not have read. I wanted to do one of those like reading for 24-hour vlogs, but like it only counts when you're physically actually reading. So I have my phone timer, which I'll hopefully remember to screen record throughout this experience. And really this is an experiment to see if what I can read in 24 hours is the equivalent of just me reading throughout a week, because I fully suspect that this is going to become like a week-long vlog. So the two books that I'm actively currently reading are two very different books. We might be checking in on Say Nothing every once in a while. This is a nonfiction book about the Troubles in Ireland. I read this book before and I've been wanting to reread it. Now we're rereading it. And I've been going back and forth between the audiobook and the physical book. But I don't really know how interesting like nonfiction books are in vlogs, so we might not even talk about this at all, but here she is. We're also reading Graceling. I've been recommended this book. I know it's like a YA fantasy kind of situation, but I've been told that it really holds up in the way that the Hunger Games really holds up. I'm about 100 and something pages in, and I'm super enjoying it. I love the main character. I love Poe. I love Raffin. I just love all these little guys. They're just all like my little guys. This follows Katsa, which why do all the YA rebellion girlies have like cat related names? I'm not saying there's a YA dystopian to furry pipeline, but I'm saying there might be. This book follows Katsa. She's a Graceling, and Graceling are people basically who are born with heterochromia. Their eyes are different colors, but not only are their eyes different colors, they have like magical powers. Katsa has fighting Graceling, which means that she's basically strong woman Do Bong Soon. I've already made this joke with one of my friends, and so if you're seeing this and you're like, wow, joke repeater, yeah, new audience, old jokes, it still works out. But going into this book, it felt like a crossover between Strong Woman Do Bong Soon and Legend of Zelda. So, two of my special interests. But she's a fighting Graceling, and her uncle kind of uses her as like the strong man, like mafia guy. Like when someone messes with him, he's like, yo, go fuck them up. Teach them a lesson. Let them know that they can't mess with Don Rhonda, the Godfather. So really this is a crossover between Strong Woman Do Bong Soon, Legend of Zelda, and the Godfather. So she's like his strongman, but she doesn't enjoy fighting and or killing. So she actually creates this like secret council, conveniently called the Council, where she does like her own missions to actually use her powers for good and like help people. And the book starts off with one of her most recent missions where she rescues this old man who is a prince, ? And they were just told, hey, rescue this old man. But she has no idea like why he was kidnapped and who did that. So it's kind of a fantasy whodunit in a way, because we're all trying to figure out why is this old man so important. This has been like scratching the brain in the best ways, but I do have to continue getting ready. And then we can have breakfast, read, and then think about what we're gonna have for lunch, because I'm really feeling some bibimbap, because I haven't had that in a while. The only problem is that the closest place that sells bibimbap is like 20 minutes away, which isn't very far, but I'm lazy and I don't know if I actually want to do that drive. I tried. I just wanted to do a quick check-in before I start work, but I only read for like 20 minutes, like you can see in the little like timer that I'll put somewhere, and I'm on page 147, and I just wanted to pop in real quick and talk about how much I love Katsa. Like, she is just the everything character to me. Maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I just always have such a soft spot in my heart for the characters who like don't want to be mean, don't want to be evil, but because it's their expectation to be harmful, they're like, I have to, this is what everyone thinks I should be doing. And so because everyone thinks that I should be doing it, then obviously it's my nature, and they know me more than I know myself. And so I guess I am just a monster. It's very Frankenstein coded. It's very Satan coded. Let's put up that quote one more time. I feel like I should have that quote like as my banner for my YouTube channel, because I bring it up so often, but one more time, just for old time's sake. Katsa is just, she's so scared to connect with other people because she is so sure that she is a monster, and she doesn't realize like how endeared everyone is by her. All of her friends love her so much and see the kindness in her heart, and she is just like incapable of seeing it because she grew up in an environment that like didn't allow her to be sensitive or vulnerable or soft in any way. And I'm just obsessed with her. She's already my baby. She can do no wrong because she's actively trying to do good. So even when she does something wrong, I know she's just trying her best and I love her. So that's that. Plot update, I guess. So they rescued this old man. His grandson kind of joined the party because he was looking for his grandpa, and he is another Graceling who has like the ability to fight really good. So they became quick friends because they finally like met their match. You know, they were so isolated and so feared by their community, but instead it turns out that he's like something of a mind reader himself. So she feels immensely betrayed by him. There's also some political intrigue going on with the whole like kidnapped grandpa, but for me, honestly, this is a character study about Katsa and how she's the best girl in the world. It's nearing the end of the day. According to my watch, it's about like 8 or 9ish o'clock right now. I still plan to read a little bit more tonight, but I figured I'll do a check-in. I read for about an hour and 40 minutes. I'll put the little screenshot somewhere. Poe is like, okay, well, I'm leaving your kingdom because I still gotta find out who and why they kidnapped my grandpa. And so she ends up going with him. And they're currently on their way to a place called Monsey. They suspect that king was the one who was behind this kidnapping. That's a little bit of a controversial take because that king is like known to be a philanthropist. But if anybody knows anything about philanthropy, is that the only reason why those people have enough money to donate and to do good is because they had to exploit someone in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. This king in particular, his name is Lek, and he's like known to have like animal shelters. He like cures dogs that have like these weird scratches on them, and he's like such a legend for taking care of dogs. Poe suspects that there's some kind of foul play because he's like, one, don't trust this guy. People speak too highly of him and so sounds fake. Two, why is his kingdom filled with dogs and animals that are like slashed up? One suspects that he's just trying to make himself look good, so he like hires people to attack these animals, bring them over, and then he looks like a kind-hearted person by healing the animals. On the character development side, Katsa and Poe are a thing now. In the middle of their like journey, there's like a good like 3-chapter arc where they were like getting along fine, and then Katsa was like, oh shit, I find him attractive, I like him, I don't know how to deal with these emotions. And then they kind of like distance themselves. When they finally confront each other, he was basically like, listen, I didn't plan for this to happen either, but I would like to marry you, but I know that's not something that you see yourself doing. And so if I can't be your husband, I will be whatever you want me to be. Whatever works for you is gonna work for me because I just want to be part of your life. What an icon, what a legend, what a king. I'm just truly obsessed with their dynamic. I think they're so amazing and perfect for each other. I'm just like eating this shit up. I'm literally just gonna rip out the pages and stuff them in my mouth because I want to eat them so bad. I do have a slight lip gloss mark when I was going like this earlier today when I was like talking about the book or whatever. One step closer to actually eating it. If it looks like I just got back from work, it's because I just got back from work. Read a little bit at work. We're almost at 4 hours, which sounded like a huge success to me until I was thinking about it on the drive home. And I was like, damn, I still got 20 more hours to go. So I'm learning a lot about myself as a reader through this little vlog experiment. And the first thing that I learned is that I'm not a reader. The second thing is that my undiagnosed ADHD is something serious, because my biggest problem with reading is reading consistently for a long period of time. But despite my struggle with staying focused and staying on top of things, we did finish Graceling. If you like Strong Woman Do Bong Soon, if you like The Hunger Games, if you like Legend of Zelda, The Godfather, The Quest for Camelot, Warner Brothers animated movie deep cut, if you like that movie as well, this is the book for you. This book just reminded me of so many wonderful things that I enjoy, and then this was in itself such a wonderful thing that I enjoyed. It just had such a good time. I do want to continue the series, but I don't want to read it all at once because one, I've been told I don't have to. I've been told that this is more of like an anthology, so I can like dip in and out whenever I want, and I don't want to speed run through the series. Like I want to like marinate in this world a little longer because as fucked up as this world is, I still really enjoy the characters. But we still got 20 hours to go, so now we got to figure out what else we're gonna read. I think we're gonna start YN tonight. I feel like standing today, so that's what we're doing. We only read for like 30 minutes last night. I started reading around like 6:37ish, and then I knocked out on the sofa. And then I woke up around like 10, and I was like, okay, let me do my nighttime routine. And since I slept for 3 hours, surely I have enough energy to stay up and like read a little bit more, right? No, read for like 15 more minutes and then knocked out for the rest of the night. I think the reason why I was so sleepy was just because the air quality has been super bad. It must have been like messing with my head that I just like needed to knock out. Luckily, the air quality is better today. So today's gonna be a big cleaning day. We got laundry to do. We got sweeping to do. We might do a grocery run. And then as a reward for being so busy and being so on top of things and being so responsible and cool, we are going to get bibimbap today. You must be wondering, Angie, you're doing all these things. How are you going to get some reading done? I put down the physical book of YN and I decided to pick up the audiobook. One, because I have a lot of chores to do, and two, because the writing is so like wordy that I think that was also another reason why it was putting me to sleep. Just a lot of sophisticated big 5-syllable words that I was like, whoa, I thought this was just going to be a fun little book critiquing idol culture, and instead it's like very philosophical. So I switched to the audiobook and I'm currently 25% into the audiobook. How do I feel about this book? Great question. The answer is I'm not sure yet. I don't know. I think this goes for both like this fictional story as well as like real life idol culture. On one hand, this like obsessive parasocial relationship is unhealthy. But on the other hand, this parasocial relationship can ease anxieties and provide comfort to people who feel lonely and depressed and who feel misunderstood, because there's always going to be this idol who's always going to be like supporting you and like encouraging you and shit like that. And on top of that, through this idol, through this fan base, you like find a community of people. And so in that way, it's not so bad, right? So there's that. We are following our protagonist. She was initially like not at all interested in this boy group, and then she was like forced to go to a concert with her roommate, and she was just captivated by this guy named Moon. From one page to another, she goes from I don't really like this guy, he kind of weirds me out, to like leaving her partner, because they also had like a situationship, because she said that he didn't understand her the way that Moon understood her, and he was like, Moon doesn't even know you fucking exist. And she's like, yeah, but it's different. And then she started writing fanfic, and she became like a semi-popular fanfic writer, and she's like going to these like fan events and she's meeting other people. So it's been interesting because you see the idol culture impact on like the protagonist herself, and then you're also meeting all of these other characters and seeing how they impact them differently. I feel like an anthropologist listening to this, and that's me saying that as someone who has participated in like One Direction and K-pop fandom worlds. But I feel like my version of like invested is like the Stan's version of like a casual fan. There are different levels, there are different depths, but I don't know how to swim. I think I was just always at the shallow end, and even at the shallow end, like waist level, I was like, damn, this is deep. Turns out not that deep. So yeah, it's been interesting. Like even as someone who has participated in these different like subcultures, I still feel like there's so much that I don't know, and so it's been fascinating. So on that note, we're gonna continue the audiobook. We are going to sort laundry. We're going to be doing the laundry, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I'll check in once I finish the audiobook, which I think will be pretty soon because the audiobook is only 4 hours. And then we have to go through the trauma of finding another freaking book to read. How do people do this? It'll be fine. Hi, quick update. I think the feeling that I feel when I listen to this book is a slight queasiness in my stomach. So, where are we? Her ex-partner situationship guy set her up with this therapist who works exclusively with people who have severe parasocial relationships. And I'm so sorry. I know she's going through it because Moon just announced his retirement and she's like in mourning. But this man read her for filth and it was kind of hilarious. But then he says something along the lines of, well, if you really loved him, you would be in Seoul trying to find him. And then she was like, oh, great idea. Let me go to Seoul. And she just met this group of fans who are somehow worse than her. There's a couple in this group who have been together for about a year. They don't know each other's names, and the only conversation that they have with each other is about Moon. And his group are basically like, well, now that Moon retired, the company is going to try and erase all images of Moon. So we came to Seoul to counteract that. We want to preserve and archive like Moon's existence, because once the company removes his image, it's going to be like he never existed in the group, he never existed in the world, which in some ways I can agree with, because that is something that a lot of companies do. It is a very bizarre thing to like witness in real time. I think it would just be easier to be like, yeah, they left. Yeah, they were here and they left, because everyone knows that they were there and then they left, you know? So she came across this group and now the guy is like, we should work together to track down Moon. And she's like, I don't know, I kind of want to do this on my own. Which is the other fascinating thing about her. She thinks that her relationship with Moon is unique to her and that no one would understand. But like the amazing thing about parasocial relationships is that they're like cookie cutter and it's like a one size fits all. So everyone who's in a parasocial relationship with like any one celebrity thinks that this is like a unique bond between them and the celebrity. It's just the same bond that the celebrity has with a bunch of people that they don't even know. I feel like a touch queasy reading this. It's a lot more emotionally visceral than I thought it was going to be. So there's that. I just wanted to jump in because I registered the feeling that I'm feeling in the pit of my stomach, and it's We got a big old freaking update on our hands. We were listening to the audiobook for YN, and we finished it. Amazing. Do I know how I feel about that book? No. Did I really understand what was going on at all times? No. Did I enjoy it? I don't know. I'm also not fully convinced that everything that happened to the book is exactly what happened to our protagonist, if that makes sense. Because the book is like kind of told in two parts. The first is the protagonist's journey in Seoul looking for this idol. And then the second part is the fanfic that she's writing between YN and the idol. Towards the end, it kind of feels like the lines between reality and fanfic were starting to blur. And so by the end of it, I was just like, did all of this actually happen to her? Or is this another like part of her fantasy finally meeting him and like getting vulnerable and like philosophical with him? Like, I'm not entirely convinced that really happened to our protagonist here. Part of me is more inclined to believe that on her journey in Seoul, she kind of diverted from reality and just like fantasized what it would be like to finally meet the idol. So, final thoughts. Would I recommend this book? I don't know. I think this book is either a book with a whole lot of nothing in it, or it's extremely smart. But either way, I don't think my brain is big enough to figure out which one it is. So after we finished laundry and after we finished YN, we did a grocery run, and then we finally got our bibimbap. It was delicious. Thank you for asking. Did I record anything? No, of course not. I'm living my life. So I also started Oh My Mother by Connie Wang. It's a book reflecting on Connie's coming of age, upbringing, life generally, and then more specifically through the scope of her relationship with her mother and how that changes throughout like different periods of her life. Connie as a young child is really funny to me. She'll talk about how like she wanted to be like so enigmatic and mysterious and cool, and describes how she'll like listen to like mature like music as a kid because she wanted to show off how like sophisticated and different she was. And then as she's like reflecting on that, she was like, I only now realize that just made me a huge freaking weirdo. Like, it would be one thing if I genuinely enjoyed these things, but the fact that I was going about it just to seem mysterious just made me seem even weirder than I already was. So it's been really funny to read about how she kind of reflects on like her cringy childhood, and not in like a self-deprecating way or in a mean way. It's more in a like, looking back on it, it was a little silly, but I really thought I was the girl. What a long, productive day. I think I'm just gonna keep reading. So I may have Mickey Mouse goofed it. I might be a goofy goober because the other day I was reading before bed and I fell asleep, but I forgot to turn off the timer. And so the next day I woke up, I saw that the timer was at like 19 hours and I was like, sickening, we're almost done, we're almost there. And then I realized that's not possible because the timestamp before that, according to my screenshots, was about 9 hours and 45 minutes. So I was like, okay, all this tells me is that I slept for about 9 hours. Congratulations, me. So I didn't read for most of yesterday because I was just like so disheartened at the idea of like this vlog and all the work I've done so far being for naught. But then I remembered that math exists. And so the timestamps are gonna look a little stupid going forward because we're restarting the timestamp. And since my last timestamp was 9 hours and 45 minutes, we're just gonna round it up. It's 10 hours. So now all we have to do is read for 14 more hours and then we're done. And so that's my personal update. I do have some reading updates. Originally, I wasn't going to mention this book at all, but I have been focusing a lot on Say Nothing. I think where we left off was talking about the hunger strikes that were happening. And another little note that I wanted to make on the hunger strike, not only were the sisters inspired by this poet who also did a hunger strike 50 years prior, but they were also inspired by like the famine itself. Because in the book, it makes this note that says, if the British had employed hunger as a weapon during the famine, it would now be turned around and used against them. And so I just thought that was such an interesting way of going about it. This famine was like such a huge, devastating piece of history, and for the Price sisters to be able to like use that against the British was just super interesting and neat, I think. So I got pretty far. It doesn't look it, but that's because like the last 100 pages are like bibliography notes and whatever. The sisters were eventually released and returned to Ireland, and the most buck-wild part is, well, there's several. The most buck-wild part is that there's more than one buck-wild part about their hunger strike. First, they were being force-fed by the doctors in the prison, and realizing that being force-fed was keeping them alive, the sisters start fighting back, which makes it even more dangerous. And it gets to a point where the doctors were like, it's literally not safe to force-feed them, which sounds like an oxymoron or like a paradoxical like statement to make, but they were like, it's literally not safe enough to force feed them. We have to stop. And so then they're 100% back on their hunger strike, and they were on their hunger strike for 206 days. I like can't even wrap my head around that. And I think that's like one of the most like fascinating things about this book is just the like sheer will and determination of these people, because they weren't the only ones who did hunger strikes. And so they talk a little bit more about like other people who have done it throughout the 70s and 80s. Where I'm at right now is actually like the conclusion-ish part. So this book was broken into 3 parts. The first part is kind of just like the context. The second part really follows different individuals that were in the IRA. And then the third part is kind of like, so what happens after? And so one of the things that has happened is that Boston College in Boston, created this program to try and document as much history and as many personal accounts from the Troubles as possible, because one of the things about the Troubles is that no one who was affiliated with the IRA will admit or say anything about the IRA. So they created this program specifically in Boston College because the US was like neutral ground. And because it's on US soil, the interviews and all of the information that's saved is protected under the First Amendment. So it's just buck wild to me, like how careful they had to be when even like thinking of how to document all of this information. Another layer of that is that the interviews that they made won't be released or available to researchers until the interviewee is dead, to protect their identity and to protect their reputation. And not only that, but all of the names are like in code, and there's a separate key in a separate building, so it's not easily accessible to find out who is saying what. So that's where we're at. Very super cool. Another thing that I keep forgetting to mention is that the audiobook is read by an Irish narrator, which I think adds an immersive element, but I'm also just generally a huge fan of Irish accents, so it's just like very nice to the ear. So that's my update. We're currently at like 2.5-ish hours. You'll know better than I do how far we are to the squeakquel of the 24-hour challenge that I'm doing. This is the start of the apology section of the video because I haven't read in about a week. In my defense, I did get a cold, and so I like physically could not do much without blowing my nose every 2 seconds. And I did finish 2 books and then just like promptly stop. This is the timestamp that we're at, 18 hours. We're doing great, except for when we weren't. So just really quick, some updates. We finished Say Nothing. I really enjoyed it. I feel like the author did his best to be as objective as possible, which is a very hard thing to do in nonfiction because the whole point is that you're trying to prove a thesis, right? I also think that he did a great job of making this information accessible and easy to read. I think part of it is because Patrick Radden Keefe is like a journalist, so he just has that skill of writing to like draw readers in and engage them. I think for other reasons, it's because the information that he was using all came from the oral interviews that were part of the Belfast Project. The book really feels like someone is telling you the story like orally, which again makes sense if most of the source material were oral interviews that were recorded. Overall, this book is really well written in my opinion. I don't have a lot of background in Irish history, so this was more eye-opening than anything. I can't necessarily say if it's done well or if it's done accurately or if it does justice to the history of the Troubles, just because I don't have that like cultural or historical context. What I can say about this book is that I think that it was written in a way that made the Troubles an accessible piece of history. I also can appreciate this book because, as the book explains, the Troubles, 1, is a really complicated period of time, but 2, before the Belfast Project, was a very hard time to document because people would not share information with the police or the government officials, which I can 100% respect. Like, the reason why this book is called Say Nothing is because it was said, or it was not said, that when families were interrogated about like IRA movements or IRA members, people would say nothing. They weren't going to expose their community or their family members in any way, which again, very admirable. Makes it hard to be a historian for sure. So really enjoyed this book. I really didn't think that we were going to do any nonfiction books in this vlog, but we did 2. So this is the first one, and then we also finished Oh My Mother by Connie Wang. This we spoke about briefly, maybe, but it's an essay collection, and each essay follows Connie and a trip that she takes with her mom, and she kind of has these like reflections about her own coming of age and her relationship with her mother. As far as any essay collections go, there are some essays that I liked more than others. I did realize that the ones that I didn't necessarily like were the ones where her mom kind of felt like an afterthought. It kind of felt like Connie Wang was having her own internal reflections, and then she was like, oh shit, yeah, this is a book about my mom, and then the last 2 pages brought up mom. And so I didn't really like those essays very much, but the ones that where mom was like part of the entire story were really great. I also really liked the fact that her mom was like her first editor. Like, everything she wrote was sent initially to mom for her approval. I just thought it was sweet that like the author wrote about her mom and then had like the decency to like send it to mom to be like, hey, is it it okay if I share this? I don't know how often that happens for memoirs, and so I really appreciated that detail, that mom was so involved in the creation of this book. Now we have 6 hours left of this vlog, and so I was kind of dealing with my cold, but also kind of tearing my hair out, trying to find like the perfect book, like timing wise for the 6 hours. I didn't want to get something too big where like I would have to extend this vlog for longer to like actually finish the book, because I think it would be messed up to like start a book and then the 24 hours are up and then being like, bye. I don't want to edge you in that way. But I also didn't want to start a book that was like too small and then have to go through the trauma of finding another small book. A lot of math is involved in this vlog structure that I wasn't expecting. But I did start The 7 Moons of Mali Almeida by Shihan Harunatilaka. This book follows Mali, who is a war photographer, and he's dead. The book starts and he's dead. Story over, except story not over. We eventually follow Mali as he is, 1, trying to figure out who killed him, and 2, he is trying to connect with his alive loved ones so that he can direct them to a box of photos that he has stored under his bed that is sure to change the course of Sri Lankan history. Currently 90 pages in, and I've been really enjoying it. I feel like it's very different from all of the other books that I've read in this vlog, but I'm sure if I sat down and thought hard enough, I could probably find a theme across all of them. I am feeling a lot better, so I will have like actual brain power to focus on reading this weekend. I am working today, but I have a half day, so I'm hoping that 1, things are relatively slow that I can read, and 2, that I'll have the rest of the day to read as well. So that's the update and the apology video. We're gonna finish this vlog. I swear to God, we're gonna finish this vlog and it's gonna be amazing, maybe.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I don't have any updates. Every single time I'm like, today's gonna be a slow day. I'm gonna be able to read so freaking much at work. They make me work so freaking hard at my freaking job. It's unbelievable. Then afterwards, I wanted to go out to get like a little coffee as a little treat. You know, I deserve it. And so I like drove 5 minutes out and then it started raining really hard and I was like, no. And I turned around and went back home. And now you're thinking, you're home, it's raining, time to read. Cozy reading time, right? I fell asleep for like 4 hours. Now it's 5 p.m. I haven't eaten all day. I haven't read anything, but I wanted to do this update because my eyeliner, even though I slept on it, still looks real nice. Not that eye, but this eye. Are you kidding me, dude? This is a new eyeliner that I got at H Mart, and the lady promised me that it was waterproof, and oh baby, hello. So that's my update. Go check out your local H Mart for your beauty supplies because they go freaking hard. I don't know if you could tell, but I've been really struggling with finishing up this vlog. These last couple of hours have been absolutely agonizing for me. And every single time I tried starting a new book, I like was enjoying myself, but I couldn't like bring myself to continue and or to like think of anything interesting to say regarding an update. And I didn't want to give up this vlog because we're like 20 hours in. We're so close to the end. For me to give up now is just for me to like shit on everything that I've worked on, and that just doesn't feel right either. So last night I decided to take a step back and kind of just like reflect and figure out why I'm struggling so hard. And I think one of the major reasons, besides just like inability to really focus on things, is because a lot of the books in this vlog and a lot of the books that I kept trying to pick up have been like really heavy. You know, like we had Graceling, which involves like political intrigue and war and abuse. We had YN, which is like parasocial relationships, obsession, etc., etc. Oh, my mother-daughter relationships, need I say more? Say nothing. The Troubles, war, conflict. Every single book that I own is just a heavy, dark, emotional book, and I feel like I just really needed a break from that. So I went through my library's catalog and I took out Sorry Bro by Talin Voskuni, which is a sapphic romance that follows Nar, who is an Armenian American. And the book opens up with her white boyfriend proposing to her, and in that moment she realizes that 1, her white boyfriend doesn't understand her the way that she thought he did, and 2, she cannot see a life with him. After breaking that off, she tells her mom she is willing to give Armenian guys another chance, and her mom is super stoked. Her mom signs her up to a bunch of events at the like local Armenian festival that's going on, and there she meets Erebuni, and Erebuni is this gal right here. Super hot, super sexy, super smart, and our protagonist realizes that she is far more into Erebuni than any of the guys that she's meeting. The only issue is that no one in her life even knows that she's bisexual. Her entire like romantic history has been men, and so like she's never felt the need to like fully come out to anyone, and so now she's like, oh shit, she is something. I'm like 25-30% in, but this has been it. This has been the book that I needed to read. It still has some heavy themes, you know, about like Armenian history and the Armenian genocide, as well as like the diaspora experience, but it's also extremely sweet and funny, and it's been like a real delight seeing our protagonist, who has felt so excluded from like the Armenian community that she grew up in because she always felt like she was too Americanized, and like seeing her reconnect with her culture and like reconnect with her peers and feeling welcomed, and it's been really sweet. Also the hot girl, that's also been really fun and really great. I feel like this is it. This is what we need to end this vlog on a high note, and it's gonna be so amazing and so sexy and so cool. I'm excited to read again. Here we are, baby. Hey, we freaking did it. Technically, we didn't actually read for 24 whole hours. We're like 9 minutes off. I'm not the type of gal who looks at technicalities, except for when I'm trying to prove a point, and then technicalities are my whole jam. But this time, ignoring the technicalities actually works in my favor. So for the sake of this vlog and for the sake of my sanity, we read for about 24 hours. We finished Sorry Bro. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really sweet and really funny. I saw some reviews saying that like the third act conflict was like not well fleshed out, but I thought it was fine. I thought it was kind of realistic. A whole arc of the story is the fact that our protagonist is closeted from their family, and so when they start this relationship, they kind of have to figure out how they come out to their family. And they're like, I'm sure my mother would support me and accept me, but there's always that like inkling of fear of what if she doesn't, you know, what if it all goes wrong. And so I feel like the author did a pretty good job in navigating that. And then overall, like, you know, when she does talk to her family and talk to her mother, I thought it was really great. I thought it was really sweet. Did I cry? No. Did I think about crying? So final thoughts on this 24-hour little thing. 1, a lot of work. 2, do not recommend. 3, I read like 5 books in 24 hours, so that's kind of neat. Did the 24 hours take the course of 2.5 weeks? Perhaps. But I think the act of having to remember to like start the timer every single time that I read was kind of annoying. I think that kind of like definitely takes me out of reading a little bit and makes reading like less fun and more like work. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not doing this experiment ever again. If we're doing reading vlogs, we're doing reading vlogs, and we're just gonna have a super chill, laid back time. But even though I hated it, I persevered, and I'm really proud of myself for that, because you have no idea how many vlogs I have started this year and then like never finished and just erased the footage because I just like stopped. I just didn't feel like doing it anymore. But this one, I was like, I really got to stick it out, because when you see the time like saved on your phone, you're like, I'm so freaking close, I just got to do it. So that's my journey. That's the emotional journey that I went on. Hopefully the emotional journey that you went on while watching this wasn't as severe and wasn't as bad, because you didn't have to do any of the work. But we're finally free. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great day. And we're just gonna go back to the super chill, laid back videos. I don't have the mental capacity to do this again, but I did it once. And for that, I am proud.